All right, diving right in today. We've got a single source deep dive on the docket. And let me tell you, this book review's got me hooked already. We're talking The Wager, A Tale of Shipwreck, Mutiny, and Murder by David Grann. Buckle up, because it's 1741, a British warship, and a whole lot of trouble in the waters off Patagonia.
Oh, yeah. The Wager really grabbed me, too. It's the kind of story that stays with you, Not just your typical shipwreck survival thing. It's about what happens to people when everything falls apart. How do they react? What choices do they make?
And those choices, right, that's where it gets interesting. We're talking HMS Wager, part of the British Navy, on a mission to, well, basically mess with the Spanish during the War of Jenkins' Ear. But their mission goes very, very wrong on the shores of Patagonia.
And that's where Gran really shines. He's done his homework big time. First-hand accounts, old naval records, historical documents, you name it. It's all in there, making the story come alive, and makes you realize that maybe, just maybe, there's no one single truth in this whole mess.
You hit the nail on the head. Conflicting accounts, different interpretations, it makes you question everything.
Exactly.
So you've got this crew stranded. Starvation, disease, the Patagonia wilderness breathing down their necks. But then, enter the mutiny. That's when the wager takes turn you don't see coming.
Mutiny, right. Makes you think,
Yeah.
where's the line between loyalty and doing whatever it takes to survive? Can we even judge these guys, given what they went through?
Tough questions. And the book review mentioned all this naval jargon. I gotta admit, sometimes that stuff goes right over my head.
Oh yeah, like lee shore. That one tripped me up at first. Basically, it's the shoreline that's downwind. Bad news for a ship in a storm, almost no way to maneuver, high risk of running aground. Understanding that term, well, it makes the wager's predicament crystal clear.
Ah, okay, that makes sense. You know, it's funny, this whole War of Jenkins' Ear thing sounds like something out of, I don't know, a comedy skit. But I'm guessing it was pretty serious business back then.
Oh, absolutely. This war between Britain and Spain was no joke, and it all started, well, with an ear. British sea captain Robert Jenkins claims Spanish coast guards boarded his ship, chopped off his ear, and said, "Here's a little message for you and your British buddies."
Whoa, talk about a strong message. So
Mhm.
basically, something small blows up into this huge international conflict.
Right. And you can't forget all the trade disputes going on, too. The whole Atlantic, even the Pacific, was caught up in this war. The Wager's mission was part of this bigger fight, disrupting Spanish shipping, weakening their hold on the colonies.
So the crew was fighting more than just the elements in each other. They were pawns in this global power struggle. Adds a whole new dimension to their story, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Their struggle, it reflects the bigger picture, doesn't it? The brutality, the moral gray areas, the whole mess of war.
You're a history buff, so I'm curious, what struck you about this book review when you first read it?
It reminded me of Grand's other stuff, especially Killers of the Flower Moon. The way he digs into these forgotten pieces of history, turns them into stories you can't put down, it's amazing. And then you see that 4.5-star rating. Well, that just sealed the deal for me. I gotta check this out.
Yeah, a good rating from a reliable source, that always gets my attention too.
And you know what else? The reviewer talked about how Grand's writing just pulls you in, especially the descriptions of Patagonia, harsh, unforgiving. You're right there with them.
I can imagine. Icy waves, relentless wind, it was all there in the review. That environment, talk about terrifying and isolating. And that's where the mutiny happens.
It's like this is more than just a survival story. It's a thriller, digging into the darkest parts of human nature.
Definitely sounds like a wild ride. So we've got the shipwreck, the brutal setting, and the mutiny brewing. But what happens next? How did these guys even make it back to civilization? And what happened to them when they did?
Well, let's just say things get even more complicated. Getting back to civilization, well, it wasn't a smooth ride for these guys, more like trading one kind of hell for another. Now they're facing judgment, whispers, the whole court of public opinion.
Yeah, talk about a rude awakening. You survive the wreck, the elements, and bam, now you're on trial in front of society.
And there were all these stories already flying around about the mutiny, right? Each one painting a different picture, different heroes and villains. It became a national obsession, figuring out who was telling the truth and who was spitting yarns.
So it wasn't just about these guys anymore. It was about the reputation of the British Navy, their whole authority at sea.
Exactly. And the trial itself, wow, the public ate it up. All these tales of survival, betrayal, high seas drama, you can just imagine those courtroom scenes, intense.
Oh, I bet. It must have been like something out of a movie, right? All those conflicting stories, the pressure on those survivors.
Gran really captures that, you know? You can feel the tension, hear those voices clashing. It makes you think, how can anyone really judge these guys? Can our regular laws even handle a situation this messed up?
Right. I mean, we're talking about survival instincts, desperation.
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line?
Exactly. It's all these shades of gray, you know? Gran really makes you wrestle with those questions. How we decide what's right and wrong, who's accountable.
Speaking of accountability, the book review mentioned the captain. Did he make things worse? Did his actions, or maybe inactions, push the crew towards mutiny?
That's the thing about Gran, he doesn't give you easy answers. He shows you the captain, all sides of him, but he doesn't judge. He leaves that to you, the reader. Makes you think about what it means to lead, especially when things are falling apart. What choices do you make when every decision could be your last?
It's easy to judge from the outside looking in, right?
Yeah.
But put yourself in their shoes for a second.
Yeah.
Would you keep your cool? Would you sacrifice yourself for someone else? Those are tough calls.
That's what makes this story so powerful, I think. It goes beyond the history books, makes you question yourself, your own values.
Absolutely. Amidst all this chaos and brutality, was there any good that came out of it? Any moments of humanity, you know?
There were, actually, and Gran doesn't shy away from them. Even in the darkest moments, there's selflessness, loyalty, even forgiveness. It's like a reminder that even when everything's falling apart, people can still surprise you.
A little bit of hope in a pretty bleak story, huh? It says a lot about the human spirit, that ability to find connection and meaning, even in the face of tragedy.
And those moments, they're what make the story stick with you. They remind you that there's always more to the story, something that connects us all.
This has been an incredible deep dive. We've gone from shipwreck to mutiny to this exploration of what it means to be human. It's amazing how Gran blends history and storytelling so seamlessly.
He really brings the past to life, right? You're not just reading facts, you're feeling those emotions, understanding what drove these people. It's powerful stuff.
And the way he describes Patagonia, it's like you're right there with them, feeling that wind, the spray of the ocean.
You can almost taste the salt, right? Hear those birds crying overhead.
This book is definitely moving to the top of my reading list. But before we wrap up, one last question. What happened to these survivors after the trial? How did this whole ordeal shape their lives?
Well, that's where the story takes an even more unexpected turn. So yeah, they survived the storm, the mutiny, public scrutiny, the whole 9 yards. But what happened after that? Did life just go back to normal? Not exactly.
I bet. Hard to imagine just shaking off an experience like that, right?
Yeah.
What did their lives look like after all that?
Well, the book review touches on it a little, but not in great detail. However, it does kind of hint that for some, it was a shot at, redeeming themselves. But for others, it was like they just faded into the background, maybe carried that burden with them.
Yeah, it makes you think about the scars, the mental and emotional toll of it all. How do you even begin to rebuild your life after something so intense, so morally complex?
Right. Some might have found some peace in telling their story, trying to justify their actions, seeking forgiveness, maybe. Others, well, they might have shut down completely, haunted by everything that happened.
It's a reminder that survival isn't just physical, It's the emotional and psychological impact, too. Everyone processes trauma differently, and there's no right or wrong way to heal.
Exactly. And those individual journeys, even the ones that are never shared or documented, they speak volumes about the strength of the human spirit. We adapt, we find meaning, even in the face of unimaginable hardship.
This deep dive into the wager has been quite the journey. Shipwreck, mutiny, moral dilemmas, and ultimately a deeper understanding of what it means to be human. It's incredible how one book review can spark such a rich conversation.
It really speaks to the power of storytelling, doesn't it? How it connects us to history, to human behavior, to those big questions we've been wrestling with for centuries.
Absolutely. If you're looking for a book that'll keep you on the edge of your seat and make you think, this one's for you. Survival, betrayal, the raw power of nature, and a glimpse into a turbulent chapter of history, it's all there.
And it reminds us that the past isn't just something we read about, it's woven into who we are today. It shapes how we see the world, how we understand each other, how we make choices.
So go ahead, take the plunge into the wager. Let it transport you to a world of peril and moral reckoning, and who knows, you might just come out with a new perspective on the human experience.
And as always, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep searching for those hidden truths that connect us all.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious and keep those minds open.